and I'll say, hello, I'm Doug Mooney. This is Maya. We're going to be talking about blend shape a little bit today and a few other things. And I just wanted to go. All right. And so,
that was awesome.
Thank you. Good morning, Space Cadets. I had all these blend shapes for all the mouth shapes of the mouse. And I didn't do the UVs on one that had the same amount of polygons. Each one of these heads is a duplicate of these. And so I have all these heads, but they don't have these UVs. And I almost thought it would be easier to reproduce all the head. There's about 12 for different vowels and consonant sounds. Now, really, if you want the mouse to speak, you can just do open and shut shapes with the mouth. But if you want to look really like a real human speaking, you need the consonants and the vowels. And if I switch screens here and I go to here, these are just the vowels, but they also have consonants, and you should be able to see those. And so if you do the vowels and the consonants, you have to make all these mouth shapes. Actually, some of them like O and some words, you need the tongue to actually stick out of the mouth just a little bit. Let me see if I can open. I need to go to my screen. Let me minimize this and I'll set my screen back. New share and go back here. Let me go like this. I think I have the other consonants. I'm not going to show you the other consonants right now, but there are a couple of them. I think it's U or T. You actually stick your tongue a little bit between your teeth. So sometimes you actually need a tongue. So we might make a tongue for Space Mouse. What are you seeing now? Are you seeing Zoom? What are you seeing?
See, like Maya, and then like.
Okay, as long as you see Maya, I'm okay. And you should see Maya here.
That's full, yeah.
Good, very good. Okay, so what I did is I started making these mice. I took one and I duplicated it, and I just moved it over. In fact, when you do animate this, I'm going to have to bring in the top of his suit because I think I just do a scene where he's close and he's talking. And I actually did a pretty good job with the eyes on this. I think I did the eyes with you guys so you could see the textures on the eyes. And here we are. You can see the eyes are looking pretty good. I think I'll actually add a lens, a clear lens over the top, the shape of a lens, because it makes the eyes look more convincing. You can actually make a hole in the eyes that go back and maybe reflect a different color off the back, like deer in the headlights or whatever. Now, once you've done these blend shapes, you can then go in and smooth one of them. But what you have to do is, let me check my window. Animation editors is where blend shapes are. And it's a shape editor. I used to call them blend shapes. Now they just call them, yeah, they create blend shape. So if I move this over, I have created it. I selected all these and selected this main one last because this is going to be my head. And I made a blink. So if I go like that, you can see it blinks. And I did just a little bit different on the blink because when I blink, my cheek kind of comes up. So if you look at this blink, his cheek. Did I do? Oh, not with the blink, with the wink I did. With the wink, see how his cheek is coming out when he winks? I think it's a little bit too much, but it's not horrible. I think when you're far off, sometimes I exaggerate these things if you're doing something that's a little further away. If you're real close, you might not want to exaggerate it. It's the difference between like a dinner theater when you're really close, in a regular old globe presentation when you're pretty high up and further away. So here's the blink. And so when I blinked myself, I didn't really move a lot of my facial muscles. I just closed my eyes. And I actually looked at my eyes and saw that the bottom lid was coming up as well as the top lid coming down. I was almost thinking it was just the top lid. So you want to try to be accurate. Now, do rats blink that way? I don't know. I don't want to find a rat and poke him in the eye. That's not nice. And I don't want to play with the rat. So here's blink. And then there's wink, where we get a little bit of that cheek coming out when he winks. Here's open. And then this one is the shut, the O sound. O, 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 O. All right, anyway. Now, with these blend shapes, you can set the amount that the blend shape influences. Now it's influencing at 100%, but if I put it to 50, which I really haven't had a reason to do this, but if I do the wink, you can see it only goes halfway. If I do the blink, it only goes halfway, more of a squint. Normally, when I animate these, you can set the keyframe here where these dots are, and you can go in here and you can, if you don't want him to blink all the way, you can just have his eyes quiver a little bit and set keyframes at different times. So I'm going to actually delete this blend shape by clicking on the top and hitting delete, because I want to add another shape to it. And so I've got an O, but I want to make more of a U shape. U. U is more, it's a smaller round shape. The O is actually a little rounder than this, but I think for a rat it worked out okay. But I want to make it smaller and rounder. I'm just going to duplicate this one, Control D and W, and move it over. And on these other ones, I had snapping to grid on and snapping to point. So when I moved it over, it snapped to a uniform distance. Whenever you do this snapping, I always turn it right off because I don't want it snapping like that. And then I'm going to come in here, and if I would have done these blend shapes when this mouse had a little less vertices, it would have been a little easier, though it's not horrible right now. If I go to my move tool and I double click on it, and in my tool settings, I tell it to be soft select and go to a very low setting, I can come in here and either select vertices or I can select faces. Sometimes I do vertices if I want a little more control. Now, we could also try here with the symmetry, but at some point along in time, I got these and they aren't symmetrical. So notice if I select this face here or this one, it's not doing a symmetrical setting because they're not quite symmetrical anymore, which is my mistake. I want to try to keep them symmetrical, but I'll just go like this and I'll come over here and I'll grab this face here holding the shift key. So I got both those faces, and you can see the influence it's pulling into the edges here, which I think is okay. Now I'm going to hit R, and I want to make sure this R is right in the center. If I look at the front view, space bar, right mouse, and I zoom in, F, you can see it's pretty much right along the center line. You could actually, if you wanted to make sure, there was a point where this was not right along the center line. You could turn this snap to grid on or snap to point on, and you could hit D, and you could, let me make sure I hit shift and click and click. So you have to make sure that you have these areas selected. Sometimes when you go out and click elsewhere, you don't have them selected. Then I can hit D, and I can move this pivot to a different place. And with the snapping on, it'll snap right to the middle. So if I do R and I bring these in, see how it's starting to make this more rounded. I think I need to zoom in a little bit, and I need to go Q to deselect the tool. And I think I need to shift some of these here to bring them in. And even here along the bottom of the mouth. Do I want these to get smaller? Maybe I do. Now, I like to go into my perspective view and make sure I'm not getting anything on the back of this object. And I could hide the other faces. I'm getting a little bit of the inside of the mouth, which is, I think, okay. And if I do R, I got it clicked up here to get back. That window always gets in my way. And I can bring these in a little bit. Now I'm getting some breaking of polygons here. See where that's the inside of the mouth giving me a problem?
Yeah.
So I either need to increase my influence or I need to just get the front of the mouth instead of getting further back. I think I'm okay, except for maybe I need to get maybe this edge here, hitting Q to get rid of the tool and shift to get that edge of the inside of the mouth, and maybe get this edge of the inside of the mouth. So then if I do, I think that's okay. R, I can shape these in a little bit and get more of a rounded shape for the U shape. Now I'm going to grab just these here and these here and bring them in a little to round it out a little more. I might move them down just slightly. So I'm trying to get this more rounded now and smaller. Now, the problem that happens is that you sometimes miss a few vertices. See how this is a bit broken here, right in here? It's because there's a vertice that's further in that's not correct. Now you can zoom into the mouth and you can work on that, or you could undo a couple steps and try to fix that. Now, if it's not visible, sometimes I say, I'm going to deselect this in object mode. Sometimes I say, see, it doesn't look good here. So if I render this, it's not giving me a great look. When I smooth it, it might be okay. But there's a little bit of in here where these vertices, and I'm going to turn my tool settings so that my soft select is off. Double click on the tool. So I'm just getting that one point. And I'm hoping that, and I don't know why this tool, if I got that one point, the tool's down here, you can hit D and move it, but see how if I move that out and up, it's making the shape of the mouth and the lips look a little better.
Yeah.
And it may be that if I smooth this, it'll look okay anyway. But so that's the problem I'm having here when I have a little more faces that I want, that I have to come in and adjust them a little bit to get this mouth to look a little bit better. Can't talk now. I'm having class. Call me in about at 12. Bye. Bye. Okay, so I should really mute my phone. Anyway, I'm just looking at a few of these and see how that one was kind of overlapping the boundaries. And there is one inside the mouth. Now you can actually go inside the mouth and look at it from the inside. This is the back of the mouth. And if we come through, you can look in here and you can see This, I think, is a little bit too much work, especially if I smooth this a little bit. And sometimes it's a little harder to see exactly what's going on, but there's something going on in here. You can go for wireframe and look at it too and say, is that one weird or is this one weird? Hard to tell. So you can move it and see if that's giving you a better look. Hard to tell when you're in wireframe. So I think with this model, if I zoom out and I go back to solid view, which is 5, 6 would be the textures, and we look at it, I think just moving a few of these points to make the mouth look, the lips look a little more rounded, bringing them out, bringing them back. And I like using the constraint handles to kind of keep them on the same level.
And you said you're trying to do the U val, right?
Yeah, I think it was the U. Let me switch and see if it's still open. And I'll go here and see. U is kind of open like that, but
Yeah.
it has a little bit of a pull out in the middle of the lips.
Yeah,
So,
and I think the bottom lip's a little higher.
yeah, I think so too. So we can come in here with faces. And if you get the faces, and again, this would have been easier if I still had the symmetry that worked. But if I go to soft select and you lower these amounts a bit, then you can grab these and move them up. Now, you'll have some control. The U here had a little bit of a pull out where the edges of the lip U come out, but I'm not going to be able to do that because I don't have vertices in the right places. But
I still see the val screen. I don't see Maya anymore.
okay, I'm going to switch back to Maya.
Oh, okay.
Resume share. New share. There's Maya. Okay, so we can play with that a little bit and move these things around. One thing that's going to happen is once I do these blend shapes, I am going to take the whole object and smooth it. You can't smooth it until you've done the blend shape, but I'm going to smooth this one and then undo it. Mesh, smooth. And that's going to actually make the shape look better anyway. Okay. So it looks much better when it's smooth. Also, these textures here on the side of this face are better. This line here is a little less prevalent, which I could fix that in Photoshop on my UV texture.
Yeah,
But
we still don't see Maya.
okay, there, Maya. Can you see it now?
I still just see the vowels, the picture of all the vowels. Oh, there we go. I see it now. Okay.
There,
We're good.
okay.
Oh,
Well,
no.
not anymore.
Now I see Doug.
There we are. So,
There.
so there it is when it's smooth. And if I deselect, it looks pretty good. It's not perfectly round, but I'm okay with that with a mouse or even a person. People don't speak with a perfect shaped mouth. And when it's smooth, this line here is less prevalent. Let me undo this. There. And so I can't smooth it yet, but here you can actually see the line just a little more, which in Photoshop, if I cloned it and made these colors match exactly, they'd be fine. But I think when it's smooth, this is going to be okay. So if I go here and I zoom out, and I'm going to make a bunch of other shapes, maybe based off this one because his mouth's already open, or maybe I can duplicate this one and change the shape a little bit. And I left the eyes only in one of them. You grab this one, shift, get these, and grab your last one that you want here at the end. And
So the last one you select's like the master shape then?
Master shape, yeah, we'll call it that. Here under window to animation editors, I'll go to shape editor. And when the shape editor is open, I can say create blend shape. And it's giving me a problem, which it really shouldn't, because did I smooth it too much? This was working perfectly before. So let's try this one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That disconcerts me that the eyes show up. They should not be parented to this one. Let me separate them, and then I'll go, it's a group, pasted group. So they're all pasted. So those eyes are parented here. You can go edit, unparent, and then you should, when you click this, the eye should not be parented. I don't see the eyes now. Okay, maybe that's what was giving me the problems. But it's still doing it. It's just pasted group. Unparent. So I don't want them to be part of this group. Good. Maybe that's going to fix my problems. I didn't add any extra polys to this, so it should work when I go here to my Windows, Animation Editors, Shape Editor, Create Blend Shape. It's giving me a problem with one of the objects. I'm going to assume it was the last one I did, because these, or did I smooth this one? So that's the problem if you end up smoothing things, but let's try it again. Still give me problems. That's weird because it was working perfectly before. Let's go like this. File, open scene, and it was called, it says right here at the top of this dialog box, head UV shapes best. So let me go file, open, head UV shapes best. And we'll just open it again. So I won't have that one mouth that I made. And this one has the blend shapes already set up, so they should work. Animation editor, window, animation editor, shape editor, and then we can move them. Now notice I put teeth in here, and I think I should do a tongue. So if I had a tongue, it could come and move. Let's make a tongue in another program. We'll throw it in there, and then I'll do a little speech thing just to review that. And then we can talk about a couple other things, okay? So there's the shape editor. I'm going to save this. And I'll say cancel, and I'll say file, save as. Just going to call it 2. And is Yulia there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, she's here now.
Hello, good morning. All right, so I'm just going to go into file, new scene. Now, I didn't know the scale of that, so I may have to rescale this tongue. I'm going to make a tongue by making I think I'm going to go with, you could try a sphere, you could try cylinder and shape it a little bit, shape the end. I think maybe the sphere, I like the cube, and the reason I like the cube is because it's got four-sided shapes all around. The sphere has these three-sided that just give me a little difficulty sometimes. So here I'm going to go and smooth this just once. And it's going to give me these divisions that look a little rounded already. Now, you can add facets to this and make it have more sides and things in the properties window. Remember, you have this polycube, and you can change the number of subdivisions or height and width. So it has more subdivisions. But notice if you do go to face and you grab these faces and W, move these things around, or R when you have the whole object selected and you adjust it and change its shape. If you then go in and change, hopefully this will do it, these number of subdivisions, width and height, then you maybe go to 6 and enter. See what it did? Because if it had 6 shapes, I only moved part of those 6 shapes. So if you're going to adjust an object's number of polygons on faces, you have to do it before you start manipulating it, because it does something like this. I think this is a cool shape if it was a hammer or something. And sometimes you get these happy accidents, but you just can't change the number of subdivisions and widths and things after, after you've manipulated it. So I'm just going to go back to there. This is giving me a fairly good tongue shape. It's certainly not rounded enough. I like the ability to come in and grab vertices. Notice if you do this from a perspective view, you want to make sure you get all 8 of those vertices. Sometimes you want to go to a direct side view to do it. I'm just going to go W and move this forward. And I'm going to grab these edges here, edge with the right mouse, get this one and this one. Now, notice it's adjusting other parts. It's because with this move tool or any of the tools, I've got soft select on. And sometimes you want the soft select and sometimes you don't, because I just want to put kind of a crease in the tongue like that. So it has a bit of a curve. Now, I could give it a crease now, but that gives me a crease that goes all the way along the tongue. And I think I want to wait until I smooth this object one more time. Now, when you're smoothing things, I'm going here. I normally only do the one division, which is the default. You can smooth things and preserve edges and keep sharp edges, but in this one, I don't necessarily want that. I'll apply. And so this is starting to look more like a tongue. I think a rat's tongue, and again, I don't know rats personally. I used to have a pet rat, so I don't remember his tongue. I think it was a little pointier. So if I go to vertices here, now you could do research, and certainly if I do space mouse and I don't make the tongue right, someone's going to complain and say, well, that's not a rat's tongue. So I grabbed these vertices, they're 25 because of the very end point.
Yeah, at the same time, it's a talking rat that's in a spacesuit. So I think they should be a
So
little...
I think we're okay because genetically he's been modified to be more human rat-like. So I just made the tongue a little more pointy here. And you can actually grab just these 6 vertices, 7 vertices right there. It says 9, so 9, that's okay. I just like being aware and make it a little more pointy, and I can do W and pull them out a bit So that gives me a little more pointy tongue. And now that I have these segments that I want, I can come in here. I think it's a little fat in here. 73. I think that's correct with the end point there. And I can go R and flatten it out a little bit. And the back where it connects probably isn't as important. So I'll just take this and I'll flatten it out just a little bit. Now, when you're moving these points, you can always move the points and notice they keep their distance from each other. But if you go into the tool and you go here and there's a place where it says retain component spacing. And I think it's symmetry settings, no. Soft select, common selections. There's a place where it says retain component spacing in my move snap setting. Retain component spacing. Well, if I turn that off and I take this whole tongue and I move it forward until there's a grid right there, if I want the back of this tongue to be really flat, I can grab these vertices right in here, vertices with the right mouse, get those vertices, it should say 9, 9. And since I turned off the retain component spacing and I go here and I tell it to snap to grid and snap to point, I can move it and see how it's snapped to that grid and the component spacing is not there anymore. So it flattened them out from where they were, Control Z. See how they were there? Let me see if I can get these 2 points right here. And I'll just move them. See how they're snapping? Control Z. Turn the snapping off for here. And I'll just move them so they're there. And then if I grab these 9 and I move them, turn on the snapping, I can move them. They'll snap to the grid. And these, I'll move them. See how they snap to the grid. They shouldn't be retaining their component spacing, which is interesting. But that gives me a little flatter tongue on the back, which if I smooth it again, it's fine. I'm not going to see the back of the tongue. I'm going to turn that component spacing back on. I'm going to quickly do one thing just to show you why that component spacing is good. I'm going to click on the tongue, object mode. I'm just going to do display, hide. And I'm going to make a sphere. Let's say that you were modeling a sphere and you wanted to just do half of it. So if you went to the front view and you were going to do a face and you just took all these faces here, polygons, and deleted them. I think my symmetry is on. Good. And I'll just select these. You can actually model just half a face. Let me get these here. So I could start modeling this and get just half a face, and I could select different polygons here, or I could go R, and I could start manipulating this. If I go to the whole object and I make it a little flatter, and then I grab some vertices here, and I want the side of the face, which I'll go to soft select here and just get a little softer amount. It's too much. And I can go R and move this, W, move it. And see how that retained component spacing is on and my snapping is on, which you want to make sure you turn the snapping off when you're doing things. I can adjust this, but see how the center line is not anymore in line? So if I was going to mirror this to make this jack-o'-lantern shape, which I'm going to turn off my soft select. And I just wanted to put, you know, these Q to get the tool out of the way. And I wanted to shift and push those back. Make sure I get 4. There's 4. And I can go W, go to my perspective view. And I can move this. So I can start doing this jack-o'-lantern shape or a person shape and grab faces here, pull a nose out. I can grab these chin shapes here and pull them out. Now you could do this with symmetry, W. And you could make an ear and you could do everything and get this all squared away. I'll even take this face object and I'll go smooth it once. And you can see I'm starting to get an eye. And if I do R, if this is right along the center line, I can make it a little fatter. And you can see now, if I went to mirror this, sometimes when you're doing this manipulating, this edge is not along the seam. In fact, you could even have vertices here that were out of alignment, okay? Maybe you had a few vertices here that were actually moved out of alignment. I'll make it obvious with this one. They're out of alignment. So if I went to mirror this head and grab object mode, and I told it to edit mesh, there's a mirror under mesh, mirror, and I can tell it to mirror on the x-axis and apply. Oops, Control Z. Mirror settings. I'll go here and go reset. And when we mirror this on the X positive and apply it, you can see that there might be some overlap or it might be some gaps. Let me undo that and make sure that you see some gaps. If I grab some faces, vertices here, and W, moved them. If I went to mirror this object and I mirrored it, it really should be giving me some gaps, so it's not doing it correctly, but it's not lined up to the seam, so it's not actually giving you a good mirror. There are vertices that are overlapping, and it's not a good shape. It should really give me a gap if this object was, if I'm going to front view. See how it's not right on the center line, which it should be. But if it wasn't right on the center line and you mirrored it, mirror on the wall, X positive, mirror. You can see how it's giving me gaps. So what I do, and that's where this component spacing thing comes in, you move this so it's as close to the center line as you can, but then what you do is you grab these vertices right down here, right down the center, Make sure you get all the vertices. Let me try grabbing them from the outside in. And then I can tell this to turn off the component spacing here. And then I can tell it to snap to the grid or point, and I can move it over and see how I can snap it right to the center line. And then I would have to get all of these here and snap them to the center line, and these here and snap them to the center line, and these here. And since they're not retaining, they shouldn't be retaining the component spacing, I turned it off, but they seem to be doing it. So I'll have to look into that, but you should be able to select these and not retain the component spacing and move them so they get to that center line. This one's retaining its component spacing. I do not know why. I told it not to. I wonder if that's, no, I turned it off. So it should remember. Then when you mirror it, there won't be a seam in the middle. I'm just going to delete this. I'll have to look at why it's not doing it exactly the way I wanted it to, but here, closing the tools. Now, display, show, and this can happen if you save this like this, the object's hidden. Show all, and we have the tongue. Now, down here, you actually have layers, which I don't use the layers as much, but you might like them, and they can be helpful. I can create a layer from selected. I can call the layer tongue. Cap locks off. I think that's how you spell tongue. Save. And then if it's here on this layer, you can turn off the visibility really easily. And there's some preview options here too, and even wireframe it here by going to that T. And so it could be easier than going up to display and hiding this. So perspective view. So we have this rat tongue, which I'm going to go R, just make a little narrower. And here I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab edges right along here. Q to get rid of the tool. Sometimes it just gets in the way. And I'll take these edges and I'll go W, move them down. And notice how they're snapping. What did I do? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong?
You're snapping to the edge, so.
The snapping is still turned on. I always try to turn that off immediately. So we bring this up a bit. And so that gives me a little bit of a crease. Sometimes you have to go to object mode and click off of it to get an idea of what this looks like. So I've got a bit of a crease in the tongue. And I think that's okay. I'm going to smooth it one more time. Now, I could just make this tongue pink. I'm going to go R with it and make it a little thinner. And we can go here and we can pick a tongue color. Or you could find a picture of a tongue and wrap it around it like a do UV mapping on it. But I think in this case, if I just go with a shiny, so it looks like it's a little wet, I want a healthy rat. And I pick the Fong. Double click on the Fong. And you can go here, pick a color. I will pick a kind of a pinkish color. Though they could be a bit on the gray side, maybe. We'll go like that. We'll go the pink color. And looks a little bit too red to me. I'll make it a little lighter pink. And at the bottom of this, it says done that you can click on. That sometimes you have to hide it. Now, if I apply this, which I will, with my hypershade, I can grab it. You can middle mouse drag it, or again, if it's selected, you can say assign material to selection. And you can actually assign it to just one polygon if you wanted to. And with this, it's a little bit shiny and it's a little bit, I don't mind the shine, but it's a little bit no texture. And I think rats' tongues probably are rough like a cat's tongue, is my guess. So I'm going to go bump map. And if I pick the leather, which gives me kind of a texture, you'll see that this tongue will have some leather on it if I rendered it. And, oops, sorry. Probably got no light in this scene. Always happens. I'll just put a directional light, rotate it. I'll throw in I'll make it 0.7. What's going to be the other problem when I do this? When I go to render it, is it going to look right? Arnold.
You're in Arnold? Yeah, you're going to say.
My software.
Yeah, so we'll go here to our gear and we'll go to Maya software. I like it much better. And here I can go to a higher quality. If you leave it at lower quality, it renders faster, but we want to see what it looks like. So it's too scaly for a tongue. This looks like an alien tongue. It really looks more like an earthworm, all right, to me. So if we go into this texture and we double click on it, you can go to the bump and you can change the amount of depth on that bump, which might work for me. I'll go 0.5, which would help. But if you actually go into the leather, you can change the cell size of the leather to make it much smaller. Now, it's hard to tell until you go here and render it. That looks more like a tongue to me. I think the cell's just a little too small. So I'll go to the leather by double clicking on this object and go to the letter. I think the cell size should maybe be twice that big. And I think if we render it again, it's still, I think that's a little too big. What do you think? Go a little smaller.
Still kind of looks a little lizardy.
Lizardy, yeah, if it was a lizard, it'd be perfect, but I'd probably make it purple or gray or something like that. There's a little better. They look like microvesicles. They say that in Jurassic Park. I'm not sure what those are, but they're looking at the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So for a dinosaur, that might be all right. So the cell size, I think I'll go to 5 here, 0.05. And then if I go to the bump depth here and I go to 2 and we render it, I think that looks more like a tongue. Think that's better? Still too much?
No, I think it looks good. 'Cause, I mean, you need to kind of see the taste buds too.
Yeah, that looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think it's okay. So we can put this tongue in the head. I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy it. Control C, continue. I'm going to save this so I have a tongue from now on. If I ever need a mouse tongue, a cat tongue, I can modify this. So if you do some file organization, you can certainly do this. I'll call this tongue final. If he really had a bad diet, like he was a ranger rat, I'd probably put some blemishes on his tongue. But this guy, he's Space Mouse, he has good dental plan. So we'll save and continue. And then I'll open, and it's called face. Was it called face? I think it was called face, was it not? Now, here's where I'm going to cancel. There's open recent here, but it never helps me out. UV shapes head, UV shapes best. It did help me out this time. And so I can paste this into the scene, and it ends up being a very big tongue, but it's actually in a good position. So it brings us in. This is the texture. This cube just tells where the texture is applied to the tongue. And I can go R, and we can resize it. And we can move it down. I'm going to go to the front view. And I'll move it down. So just below the teeth. I'm zooming in. F will make it fit. And we can move it over just a bit. Move it up a bit. So if he has to say that thing, we can do that. Now, I'm going to go to the side view and F to make it fit and move the tongue back into the mouth. Now it's inside the head, so that's a good place for it. Now with this tongue, I'm going to go wireframe just to look at it. It's outside of the mouth cavity, but that's okay. We can set a pivot on it, and we can go D. Oops. I'll go F. And if we hit D, I can move the pivot to the back of the tongue. So we can rotate the tongue. D, and then I can move it into here. I can even go R to resize the tongue a little bit. And I can go E and rotate it up. Now, I could use a bone to make this tongue bend, but here, I think if we have this and we want the tongue to come in and end up, let me hit 6 so you can see it. And if we wanted to end up come out and maybe touch the teeth, we could just resize this and the tongue can come out and just touch the teeth just by resizing it. So I think having it there. Now I don't have any bottom teeth in this rat. They're not quite as prevalent, but I could take this. Now, if that tongue is going to stay with this head, I have to do some parenting, but that's okay. I've got the tongue there for now, and I could duplicate these teeth if I wanted bottom teeth. I could Control D, W, rotate them. And if you want to rotate them and you want to make sure they're 180, it's minus 180 here, or positive 180. And then I can scale them down a little bit. So I always like duplicating things if I can. Move them up into place. And Space Mouse can have just a little bit of an overbite. Now, the problem with this is when I'm moving the bottom jaw, I'm going to have to move the teeth to match, and I think that could be a problem. So I think I'm just going to delete them for now and not have the teeth, but I will have the tongue inside the mouth there. Okay. So do we want to make him speak so you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I better save this. Save scene as, and we'll call it best 3. Save it. I always like saving a lot of versions. There's one little glitch in Maya. I've only run into it a couple times, but it ruins your file and you can't fix it. So saving quite often helps. So we're going to have him say something. So I'm going to launch Audition. And once Audition is open, I'm going to link you to it so you can see it. And so we'll go here, New Share, and we'll go to Audition. Now my Audition, it probably is going to use the microphone there, but it might not. Audition detected a problem with the current audio hardware setting. I could say okay, or I could just make sure hello. See, so it doesn't like using the microphone from my camera. So I have my Yeti mic. I really like this Yeti mic. Now I'm going to plug it in to my USB port, and it should. So the Yeti mic's going to be used. I'll put it towards my face. And so I should be able to audio. So when it has a problem with the audio settings here, you just have to go in and say File, New. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, and you sound a lot clearer too with that mic.
Yeah, it's a good mic. And so it doesn't like this hardware. So you actually have to go to your preferences, and Adobe puts preferences in different places. A lot of times it's here, it's under Edit, or it could be under, yep, it's under Edit. So it's in different places, so General. And we want to just look at where our microphone is. Audio hardware. And we want to use the Yeti microphone not working. So why is the Yeti microphone not working? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click and close Audition. And a lot of times with Audition, when we launch it, okay, screen sharing stopped. That's fine. We're going to go to Audition again. And if you open it again with the microphone set up, it helps. Now, Kyle, we should talk. I have a GoPro. I have a big Steadicam thing for cameras where you can see the screen, and then the camera can be way high. It has a weight on the bottom, so you can use it as a Steadicam. So if you ever need to shoot some things and you need to borrow those, we can certainly do that. And we can get kind of a collaboration on equipment too, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd actually be very helpful.
Yeah, and I'm glad to help you with some of your shoots if you need to.
Oh, absolutely.
And AJ might like to do that too, because AJ's kind of doing film. And so that might be good for him. Kyle's very good. What you got nominated for a, what was it, Emmy, Grammy? No,
Oh, yeah, it was an Emmy.
Emmy. Not nominated for an Emmy. So Kyle actually is doing pretty well, hopefully.
Whoa.
Hopefully we get that. Now, next you need is a Grammy, all right? Start singing.
You need the Grammy, Doug. You do the Superman on the trumpet and everything.
Okay, very good. So we'll open this again and see if it gives us what we need. And let's try the record button again. It's going to these settings, which normally these settings work. Detected a problem with carrier audio. Okay. So what's the problem? The problem is the settings. Let me look at the settings again. Preferences. Shouldn't be a problem. It normally just goes the right place. Control appearance. Audio hardware. Yeti. Default. Speakers. The microphone's not working. Why is it not working? Plugged in, it's okay. Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
I can hear you still.
Yeah, it's not recording. Let me go new audio file, say yes. This should work. Stereo.
Is it maybe a problem with like running it while you're doing Zoom, like trying to record audio while you're doing Zoom?
It could be because it's recording out of Zoom. All right, so I think I have an audio file already. Let me go and switch you back to, I'll switch you back to Maya. And let me see if I have an audio file. I think I do. So import and sound. Here it is. Here's an AIF, but it didn't work well unless you took it and you made it a lower sample rate. Because in Maya, it only wants to have a sample of the sound, not the high quality. So breathing, got to think, mouse, our hero, wave. I don't think it's going to work if I import it. Oh, there it is. I see it. So this is a rather longer audio file.
Future for our hero space mouse.
Now, can you hear that when I scroll it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, Zoom is doing well for that. Okay, good. So let me go here. I'll maximize this. I'll move this shape editor and I'll make it a bit smaller. And I'll put it up over here. And I normally, when I demo a mouth movement, do it with a little less than this.
A future for our hero space mouse certainly looks bleak.
Okay, so our future. So here with his mouth, I want his mouth to be shut to begin with. So here I can take and I can go open and I can go shut, all right? So his mouth is shut. So I can do a keyframe here, okay? Then here, his mouth is shut. Here, his mouth is shut. Here, his mouth is shut. So if we just did these first few, here his mouth is open. R, which is a kind of an O sound. So we can do the open, but with the open's not working, but we have an O, R, R, and I'm looking at myself. Can you see me? R. Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of feeling my mouth. A mirror actually would help. So here I'll open his mouth, R. And so right there where the peak of this is, I think right there, I'll give it a key for open and key the O, but I want the O at the beginning to be keyed shut. So I have to make sure it's shut. So you have to give it a key for the beginning and the end. So here we'll key it shut. And then here we'll key it is it the or R?
Future.
Oh, the. I'm doing R, but that's the. And we'll shut it. The. Over here. Shut it some more. key. And then we'll go here, future. So I think future, future, close this, hit, few, looks a little better. We'll key that, but we have to go here and key it shut there. And then here we would key it shut. So
future.
so he's close. So here I would key it shut, just a little shut. And then sure here, get a little open. So there we go.
Future for our hero space mouse.
We'll come here. We'll just do a couple more words. Let's key all these just so they're shut. And then here, a few. So I'll use this open, which is more of a U key. For R. I'm going to go here and just open it up a bit. R key. And then here, shut key. I won't shut it quite all the way. Key.
Future for our hero space mouse.
So it's already better than South Park. Hero. So here, kind of an open O. Here. We can actually combine these by doing keyframes and then change the shape a little bit with this shape. So do I really need here? This one, I'm just going to go a little shut. Row. And hero. Shut on all these. Space.
A future for our hero space mouse certainly looks.
So if you look at this,
the future for our hero space mouse certainly.
I didn't do space mouse. Let me do mouse because I just am offended if we don't have the mouse. So we'll do here and we'll go there. Boom, boom, boom. Just all shut. And then mouse. I think this open is a better shape for mouse. and a little waver here and here and here.
Certainly looks bleak. The future for our hero Space Mouse certainly looks bleak.
Now,
The future for
let
our
me
hero
stop this.
Space Mouse.
I keep hitting the space bar to make it stop. That's Premiere. So I have done this a lot. So I am pretty good at it. I think I did a good job.
The future for our hero Space Mouse.
So even without all the consonants and things, I did a pretty good job of doing this. And you would hide these other heads. I'd bring a spacesuit in here. This is actually the narrator talking. So he's not, the mouse wouldn't be saying this. And I think the mouse would have a squeakier voice, though mine is a little squeaky. We could probably have Yulia do the mouse voice. Not that her voice is squeaky, just probably, I think it's a little higher pitch. Yulia, say Space Mouse.
Space Mouse.
That could work. I think, I don't know, maybe you would be Mindy Mouse instead, but who knows?
The future for our hero Space Mouse.
Now, to make this even more realistic, is if we had him do a couple breaths where he goes, kind of the Darth Vader thing. Now, what this does is it doesn't put the sound on this. It just makes the movements correct so that when you render it, you can take it into Premiere or After Effects and drop the sound on it. And this sound had to be captured and then sampled down to 22 kilohertz, not the 48 kilohertz, and mono to bring it into Maya, because Maya would not import the 48 kilohertz 16-bit stereo. So the higher quality Maya won't import. It's just using it as a sample. I really like the teeth here. And especially if I smooth them once here under mesh, which makes him look a little better. And then we can play him.
The future for our hero Space Mouse.
Now, when you say things, after you say something important, or sometimes before you say something important, you always tend to blink. So here, I could give it a keyframe for all these, but then a little later, I could have him blink, give it a keyframe, and then a little later after that, he can open his eyes. Now his blink is rather quick, so I think I'll keep his blink shut for just a second by giving it another keyframe, and then it'll open up.
The future for our hero Space Mouse certainly looks bleak.
Space Mouse. Give him another blink. Keep it open for a little way. Keep it shut for a little bit. And then have it open up again.
The future for our hero Space Mouse certainly looks bleak.
Up.
The future.
His eyes are staying shut. So I need to get his eyes open here. Key. Bring them open. Make sure they're keyed. And let's try it from the beginning.
The future for our hero Space Mouse certainly looks bleak. The future for our hero Space Mouse certainly looks bleak.
Now, I think he should wiggle his ears, but I'd have to do a blend shape for it. And I would also have to take his helmet off. So I need to figure out a way of his helmet disappearing, like it's a force field, or the top coming off. I started working on the top coming off. I'm going to go back and undo this until he's smooth. I'm getting rid of the blinks.
So when you add another blend shape, it won't affect any of the keyframe animation you've already done, will it?
It shouldn't, but that's a good question. I will find out. I will test it out.
The future for our hero Space Mouse certainly looks bleak.
I like doing that. Too much, too much. All right.
Motion or something.
Well, what I'm actually going to do is save this as something else so that I could go back to 3, and you probably would call it like blend shapes. They call them bod scenes where you don't modify them. You always save a copy. So when he says something, if I saved it as head shapes bod, then I would save a copy to make him say one small step for man, one giant leap for a mouse, and save a copy. So this time, if I wanted to animate this now, I have to go back and get rid of this animation in here, which sometimes is a little hard to see because they don't really show up all the time in the keyframes here. So you want to have a clean one once you have it set up correctly with all the different shapes and the smoothing and everything you want. Then you want a clean one so that you can save it and make him say this and save it and have him say something else, or maybe he just says, "Oh, rat shit," or something like that, So, which I think he might be his only swear word.
Certainly looks bleak.
Okay, so that's really what I wanted to do today. And I need to leave just a little early. Kyle, no lunch today. You could do it Wednesday, all right?
Okay.
All right, very good. Thanks.
Sweet.
Thanks, everyone, for joining me. And we're going to say, all right, goodbye. And I'm going to say, stop the share. I'm going to say, end.
Thanks, Doug.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.